Lion by 3 initiates. This is public domain. Introduction. We take great pleasure in presenting to the attention of the students and investigators of the secret doctrines this little work based upon the world-old Hermetic teachings. There's been so little written upon this subject, notwithstanding the countless references to the teachings and the many works upon occultism, that the many earnest searchers after the arcane truths will doubtless welcome the appearance of this present volume. The purpose of this work is not to enunciate of any special philosophy or doctrine, but rather is to give the student a statement of truth that will serve to reconcile the many bits of occult knowledge that may have acquired, but which have apparently opposed to each other, and which often serve to discourage and disgust the beginner in the study. Our intent is not to erect a new temple of knowledge, but rather to place in the hand of the student a master key, which he may open the many inner doors of the temple of the mystery through the many portals he has already entered. There is no portion of this occult teaching possessed by the world which have been so closely guarded as the fragment of the Hermetic teachings which have come down to us over the tens of centuries which have elapsed since the lifetime of its great founder, Hermes Trismegistus, the scribe of the gods, who dwelt in old Egypt in the days when the present race of men was in its infancy, contemporary with Abraham, and, if the legends be true, an instructor of that venerable sage. Hermes was, and is, the great central sun of occultism, whose rays have served to illuminate the countless teachings which have been promulgated since this time. All the fundamental and basic teachings embedded in the esoteric teachings of every race may be traced back to Hermes. Even most ancient teachings of India undoubtedly have their roots in the original Hermetic teachings. From the land of the Ganges, many advanced occultists wandered to the land of Egypt and sat in the feet of the master. From him they obtained the key, master key, which explained and reconciled their divergent views, and thus the secret doctrine was firmly established. From other lands also came the learned ones, all of whom regarded Hermes as the master of masters. And his influence was so great that in spite of the many wanderings from the path on the part of the centuries of teachers in these different lands, there may still be found a certain basic resemblance of the correspondence in their underlies of many and often quite divergent theories entertained and taught by the occultists of these different lands today. The student of comparative religions will be able to perceive the influence of the Hermetic teachings in every religion worthy of the name now known to man, whether it be a dead religion or one in full vigor in our own times. There is always certain correspondence in spite of the contradictory features of the Hermetic teachings act as the great reconciler. The life work of Hermes seemed to have been in the direction of planting the great seed truth, which has grown and blossomed in so many different strange forms, rather than to establish a school of philosophy which would dominate the world's thought. But nevertheless, the original truths taught by him have been kept intact in their original purity by a few men of each age who, refusing great numbers of half-developed students and followers, followed the Hermetic custom and reserved their truth for a few who were ready to comprehend and master it. From lip to ear, the truth has been handed down among the few. There have always been a few initiates in each generation in the various lands of the earth who kept alive the sacred flame of the Hermetic teachings, and such have been always willing to use their lamps to relight the lesser lamps of the outside world when their lights of truth grew dim and clouded by reason of neglect, and when the wicks became clogged with foreign matter, they were also a few to tend faithfully the altar of the truth upon which was kept the light, the perpetual lamp of wisdom. These men devoted their lives to the labor of love, which the poet has so well stated in his lines. Oh, let not the flame die out, cherish age after age in its dark cavern, its holy temples cherished, fed by pure ministries of Lolet, let not the flame die out. These men have never sought popular approval nor numbers of followers. They were indifferent to these things, for they know how few there were in each generation who were ready for the truth or would recognize a word presented to them. They reserved the strong meat for men, while others furnished the milk for babes. They reserve the pearls of wisdom for the few elect who recognize their value and who wear them on their crowns, instead of casting them before the materialist vulgar swine who would trample them in the mud to mix them with their disgusting mental food. But still these men have never forgotten or overlooked the original teachings of Hermes regarding the passing of the words of truth to those ready to receive it, which teachings is stated in the Kabal Lion as follows: "Where fall the footsteps of the Master, the ears of those ready for his teachings wide open." And again, when the ears of the student are ready to hear, then come up the lips to fill them with wisdom. But their customary attitude has always been strictly in accordance with the Hermetic amorphism. Also in the Kabal Lion, the lips of wisdom are closed except to the ears of understanding. There are those who have criticized this attitude of the Hermetists, who have claimed that they did not manifest the proper spirit in their policy of seclusion and reticence. But a moment glance back over the pages of history will show the wisdom of the masters, who knew the folly of attempting to teach the world of that which it was neither ready or willing to receive. The Hermetists have never sought to be modest, and have instead sat silently aside with a pitying smile on their closed lips, while the heathen raged noisily about them in their customary amusing of putting to death and torture the honest but misguided enthusiasts who imagined that they could force upon the race of barbarians a truth capable of being understood only by the elect who advance along the path. And the spirit of persecution has not yet died out of the land. There are certain Hermetic teachings which, if publicly promulgated, will bring down upon the teachers a great cry of scorn and revilement from the multitude, who would again rise a cry, "Crucify, crucify." In this little work we have endeavored to give you an idea of the fundamental teachings of the Kabal Lion, striving to give you the working of the principles, leaving you to apply them yourselves rather than attempting to work out the teachings in detail. If you are a true student, you will be able to work out and apply these principles. Not, then you must develop yourself into one, for otherwise the Hermetic teachings will be as words to you. The Three Initiates. Chapter 1. The Hermetic Philosophy. This is public domain, of course. The lips of wisdom are closed except to the ears of understanding. The Kabal Lion, from old Egypt, had the fundamental esoteric and occult teachings which have so strongly influenced the philosophies of all the races, nations, and peoples for several hundreds of years. Egypt, the home of the pyramids and the Sphinx, was the birthplace of the hidden wisdom and mystic teachings. From her secret doctrine all nations have borrowed: India, Persia, Chaldea, Media, China, Japan, Assyria, ancient Greece, and Rome, and other ancient countries partook liberally at the feast of the knowledge with their hierophants and masters of the land of Isis, so freely provided for those who came prepared to partake in the great stone of mystic and occult lore which the masterminds of the ancient land had gathered together. In ancient Egypt dwelt the great adepts and masters who have never been surpassed, and who have seldom been equaled during the centuries that have taken their professional flight since the days of the great Hermes. In Egypt was located the great lodge of lodges of the mystics. At the doors of her temple entered the neophytes, who afterward, as hierophants, adepts, and masters, traveled up to the four corners of the earth, carrying with them the precious knowledge which they are ready, anxious, and willing to pass out to those who are ready to receive the same. All students of the occult recognize the debt that they owe these vulnerable masters of the ancient land. But among these great masters of ancient Egypt there dwelt one of whom masters held as the master of masters. This man, if man indeed he was, dwelt in Egypt in the earliest days. He was known as Hermes Trismegistus. He was the father of the occult wisdom, the founder of astrology, the discoverer of alchemy. The details of his life story are lost to history owing to the lapse of the years, though several of the ancient countries dispute with each other in their claims to the honor of having furnished the birthplace of this thousands of years ago. The date of his sojourn in Egypt, and that his last incarnation on this planet, is not now known, but has been fixed at the early days of the oldest dynasties of Egypt, long before the days of Moses. The best authorities regard him as a contemporary of Abraham, and some of the Jewish traditions